Among the countless themes that have been explored by authors and artists since the dawn of time, love must be the one that has had the most success. If you're new around here, hello, my name is Youmna, and I am here to recommend to you a list of 5 books and love stories that have stuck with me ever since I've discovered them. Hence why I will address them as classic love stories. Even though some might not agree with me, they are the love stories that I decide to put in my pantheon. The topic of love is infinite, and it is next to impossible to curate a list of books that will give you a definite and simple answer to the infamous question, what is love? And it seems crazy to me how much has the depiction of love evolved through the years, and at the same time how romance is still in the publishing industry what raises most interest. So if you are a hopeless romantic and if you do love just like me, I suggest you stay here, and let's start with the first book I have on my list. So the first love story that I chose is the story of Leila and Majan by Nizami. I don't have a physical copy because I've read it online. However, this story has stuck with me ever since. The legend of Leila and Majan is often compared to Romeo and Juliet. It is considered as the most popular love story and legend of the Islamic world, and it had been passed on orally for hundreds of years before the Persian poet Nizami actually wrote his version in the 12th century. He was commissioned by the king of his country to write an epic love story, hence he chose Leila and Majan. Alright, so who are they, what is the story, and why have I chosen Leila and Majan as the first love story? It is the story of a poet called Qais who meets a woman called Leila and desperately falls in love with her. As soon as he meets her, he devotes his life to writing poems about her and just becomes crazy, hence the name Majnun. Majnun is Arabic for crazy, and because of his love and what is seen as craziness, Leila's father doesn't allow her to marry Majnun. We understand very soon in the story that Leila and Majnun's love story is doomed, that they will not end up together, hence it is so often compared to Romeo and Juliet. But it is so much more interesting than that. Their story is really worth reading because it just shows how love sometimes is not sufficient, is not enough. It shows how both powerful and destroying and wrecking love can be, and how one can lose oneself in a relationship. Majnun actually lost his mind when he met Leila. He was so in love with her and so devoted that he lost everything about himself and his nature. He was only a poet dedicated to Leila. Now moving on to the second book in my list, which is the infamous Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I won't spend too much time talking about that book because it is literally one of the most popular romance classics out there. However, I did need to mention it because I think Pride and Prejudice has inspired so many writers afterwards, and Jane Austen is just such a major literary figure of romance that I just couldn't not talk about her. Pride and Prejudice was published in 1813 and has been translated to many languages. It has also been adapted as films and TV shows. And I actually first read Pride and Prejudice when I was in 10th grade. So bear in mind, I am French and Jane Austen is English. She is not necessarily the kind of author we do talk about very early on in school. However, Jane Austen had such an impact that we couldn't not know about her and Pride and Prejudice. The first time I've read it, I was really triggered by her humor and irony, which I did not understand at the time, with the first infamous sentence. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. To be honest, when I was 15, I really didn't get it. However, humor and Austen's irony is exactly the reason why I love this book so much today. So you follow the Bennet's family, and most especially Elizabeth Bennet. She may be the first or the second older sister, I'm not sure. But you follow Elizabeth Bennet and her sisters, but most especially Elizabeth. And the moment she meets William Darcy and falls in love with him, despite everything, despite her own will, despite her pride, despite her prejudice, and despite the fact that she despises everything that Darcy stands for. This love story is so universal, and I think we all need to read it to understand why romance is still a thing today. And if you don't believe in love, read Pride and Prejudice. I think it might show you a version of love that will help you believe in love. The story really shows you how unpredictable and inevitable love can be, despite everything, as I said. So yeah, this is Pride and Prejudice. So the next book I chose is on the complete opposite side of the spectrum of love stories, and couldn't be further away from Pride and Prejudice. It is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I think Madame Bovary is a perfect depiction of what a failing love is. So Gustave Flaubert is a French author of the 19th century who is well known for his implication with the naturalist movement, such as Émile Zola, for example. In a nutshell, naturalism is a literary movement that drove writers to be specialists of human nature, hence why they would often use the lexical field of medicine to describe scenes of the mundane. The descriptions would be very specific and very detailed, and Gustave Flaubert actually took a really long time to write Madame Bovary. I don't remember how long it took, but it must have been more than 10 years. He had a lot of drafts, he made a lot of research on his topic and on the setting he decided to set Madame Bovary in. In Madame Bovary, you follow the story of Emma, who was brought up in a very modest household and lives in the French countryside. All her life, she has wanted to escape her reality and become a lady of the high society. And this is a story of her trying to do exactly that through her relationships. I think this novel depicts quite perfectly how vain love is. Loving other men will never be enough for Emma because she does not love herself enough. And I think that's one of the main aspects that I got from that book. She will never be content of her life, and this is the tragedy of Madame Bovary. Love is a means of becoming happy. However, happiness does not come because you want to have a higher position in society, right? It is a French classic in French romance that you need to read. Alright, the next book is a book I've read a really long time ago, and I should probably reread it. However, its story has stuck with me ever since I read it. I actually read it when I was in middle grade, and I think that's way too young to read that book. It is The Lover by Marguerite Duras. Marguerite Duras was a very provocative French author. She published L'Amant, so translated to The Lover, in 1984 and was awarded the Goncourt Prize for this. I'm not sure I would actually call L'Amant or The Lover a love story per se, because it is a very problematic story and has a lot of disturbing aspects. The main one being the big age gap between the two protagonists. Of course, however sincere the man may be portrayed in this relationship, it doesn't change the fact that it is an illegal relationship and should be criticized and punished by law. However, I do believe that it is up to the reader to make one's own opinion about the whole matter. The novel itself is very well written and allows us a real insight into the narrator's mind. We understand how easily impressed she can be by adults and how fast she wants to grow up. She wants to be older, and this relationship allows her to have this feeling. Of course, this love is definitely not the kind of love that I would take as an inspiration. However, it does exist, and I think it is very important for fiction and literature to depict this kind of love and to allow readers to open their minds to what love can be sometimes. I think this book shows how unsafe love can be and how complex it can become. Alright, now moving on to the last book on my list, Normal People by Sally Rooney. The novel was published in 2018, but it is set after the 2008 economic crisis in Ireland. So you follow the relationship and friendship between two teenagers, Marianne and Connell. You follow their life through the span of 4 years. The novel begins when they are about to graduate high school and it ends around the last year of university. It is truly a story of miscommunication and missed opportunities. It's a story of pain and reconstruction. I truly think Normal People has become a classic love story and has its place in every pantheon of love stories. It is a love story that is right on the verge of becoming a tragedy, and that's what I love about the book. Marianne and Connell are both imperfect characters. Their love is far from the perfect image we might idealize when we are young adults. However, they are just perfect to each other, whether as lovers or as friends. And yeah, you understand that throughout the book. I actually really recommend reading the book because Sally Rooney has a very unique writing style. Nobody writes like her, and she writes like nobody, I think. She doesn't use a lot of punctuation, and yeah, it's just so true to life. You just feel very invested in their story and very close to the characters. So yeah, I'm now reaching the end of my video, but before I let you go, I wanted to talk to you about 2 books that are on my TBR. They are non-fiction books that deal with love. The first one is All About Love by the amazing author and activist Bell Hooks. This non-fiction book deals with relationships and describes romantic love in our modern society. And on the same topic, Mona Chollet, who is a French essayist who wrote In Defense of Witches, published in, I think, 2022, a book called Reinventing Love. I saw that it was recently published in English, so I think you can find it. And she really focuses on how patriarchy has affected our relationships. So yeah, those are the books that I really want to read next about romance and romantic love. Tell me in the comments what are your favorite love stories so I can read them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!